This is our second edition of the Dead Poets Foundation radio show. And today we're talking
That
with
sounds good.
Mariel Hemingway and Heche. Get your,
Wait a
get your
minute,
bell.
who?
Get
That's the
your bell.
applause.
That's your applause? I love it.
Yay.
Does that make good sound there, Dr. D? So today it's my pleasure to welcome two incredibly talented actors and best-selling authors that have both faced incredible success in their lives, but have been faced with setbacks that would have made most of us give up. They are here to talk to us about the lessons that they have learned along the way and refusing to give up. They fought their way through their pain, and they made the choice to live with intention, a more fulfilling life of simplicity, a focus on their craft with adventure, laughter, and sometimes stillness. Not today, though. Thank God.
Stillness?
Not today.
Do you have that disease? The stillness disease? I don't think so.
I use it.
Yeah.
I work on it.
Yeah. So good.
Mariel Hemingway is an Academy Award nominated actress and a best-selling author. She began acting at age 14 in a breakout role in Lipstick, 1976, and received a Best Supporting Actress Academy Award nomination and a BAFTA Award nomination for her role in Woody Allen's Manhattan in 1979. She is also known for her roles in Personal Best, Star 80, and Superman 4, right?
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, The Quest for Peace. You like
Superman
that?
4. Does that seem to age us or what? Like we've gotten to the fourth one.
She's the daughter of American royalty. I will get through my introduction.
Sorry.
I'll just wait for the daughter of American royalty, the Hemingway family. Her grandfather is, of course, Ernest Hemingway, American writer. Mariel was the third daughter born to Jack Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway's son. Her older sister, Muffet, suffered from years from instability, while middle sister Margot, a celebrated actress and a model who was caught up in the fast lane of her career and her success, eventually died of the effects of her driven lifestyle. Mariel was forced to assume the role of a stable center for her family. You turn to yoga. Mariel turned to yoga, and it's a meditative practice in an effort to maintain her center. Much of her adult life has been directed toward finding and maintaining her balance in situations that have been heartbreakingly unsettling and emotionally disorientating. She's the mother of two daughters. And Heche, welcome, is an an Emmy Award.
I'm an Academy Award winner.
Academy Award winner.
Just for today.
And we know for sure.
Did you bring it?
That's one thing she has I don't. You're right. Oh, God. I'm keeping score.
For sure we know that you're an Emmy Award winner.
Thank you.
Celebrated actor, New York Times bestseller for her autobiographical book, Call Me Crazy. As a survivor of abuse, she's learned how to live and to face the reality of a broken past on her own terms. Her father was one of the first men to die of AIDS in America, and 3 months later, her brother took his own life, sadly. At age 14, Anne found herself pretty much alone in the world. Despite these personal tragedies, Anne is a survivor. She made it to the top of Hollywood A-list. She has starred with nearly everyone from Al Pacino, Johnny Depp, Tommy Lee Jones, Robert De Niro, and Dustin Hoffman. She guest starred on the sitcom Ellen, fell in love with its star, Ellen DeGeneres, and watched the roles dry up.
Wonder why.
What was that?
Who's she?
Who was that?
Both of these strong women have traveled a terrifying inner landscape in search of personal fulfillment and have emerged happy, whole, and strong. And that is from Anne's book. I invited both of you here today because on the separate occasions that you appeared on our radio show, both of you, the stories that you told had very similar. It seemed like you had very similar backgrounds and almost running a parallel course, in your life. And we wanted to talk today about mental health and what we can, some of the options that we have and some of the things that people can do listening out there, things that have worked for both of you. It's such a personal thing, mental health, and how we deal with our own mental health. we deal with it in our own ways. And we need to be mindful of what triggers us, right? And then what to avoid and how to stay healthy. So I just thought it would be a fascinating conversation today, along with Nicola Carpinelli here, to talk to both of you about mental health and how it's affected your life. For many years, there's a stigma, right? Of that you're crazy. You if you are emotional or depressed, there's something wrong with you, right? It's not, rather than a feeling of hope and helping someone, we tend to, put those people away or push them away or make fun of them, right? That would be that seems what happens when someone is depressed. You go the other way. You don't want that in your life. You don't help as much as maybe we should. You're dealing with your own thing, and they're left to suffer. 450 million people currently suffer from mental illness right now, according to the World Health Organization. And 1 in 4 Americans suffer from at least one mental illness. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. And in 2019, 47,500 Americans died by suicide. There was 1.3 million attempted suicide. So this is something in this year that I think is the topic, the conversation that we should all be having. Do you agree?
Well, it's certainly one of them.
I think that Ann and I were sort of talking and joking and really kind of diving into each other's lives in a way. It's funny, I didn't realize your book was Call Me Crazy, and my movie is called Running from Crazy. Because I think that there is stigma around mental illness and instability, because we want to project to the world that we're all okay. And I think what happens is life starts, we start to understand ourselves and life goes on, and you start to realize that, no, wait a second, I come from this and it's probably best for me to share it. And what I was so thrilled is just to hear you really owning, the story. And the great news is about owning the story is that when you tell the story from a place of ownership, you actually can let the story go. And it also enables other people to go, oh my God, I see in your eyes the same thing. Because your story, by the way, is, whoa, slow that train down. It's your story is really quite extraordinary, but it's not really what happens in the story.
That's right.
It's what's happening in your heart and how you
the
feel. The
pool of conscious emotion is what we're all diving into. I think one of the things that we forget along the path of healing is to decide and define what it is that we're talking about. When you talk about mental illness, I think it helps when we talk about anything. We have a lot of assumptions about things that people make. Love, we can assume that love, we're talking about love. I love you, you love me. Well, then we should just totally understand what that is. But the fact of the matter is, in the action of definition, everybody wants something different, or says, I love to be treated like ABC. When I love you, you prefer to be treated ABC. We have different understanding of what it does that makes us feel loved. And I think we get confused by a definition of mental illness. I think it's hard to understand how many people are in this, because to me, what we look at when we see someone that we don't understand is that we're seeing their truth. And they don't know sometimes how to take that truth and offer it in a society that feels very different than theirs at home. And so we're witnessing something that is the pain that we don't know how to contain, that we're not sure how to manage in our households. And we then, without knowing it, are spilling it. And it creates a rejection rather than a sympathy, because we don't know it, we don't understand it, and we haven't been given the grace to be able to say when we see something that we don't understand, ask for its definition and truth. It's an opening to compassion. Mental illness to me is the looking at the person who is living in a truth that they can't express or explain physically, mentally, or emotionally in a way that relates or connects. When you look at that, I would say the numbers are way higher than what you said.
Yes.
I think we live in a world where we are not seen with a compassionate self. We are seen as a rejective. We reject ourselves, and therefore we reject others because we can't come 100% ourselves. And so in the working of sharing story, for me, that's what we're trying to do, is open the channel to say what it is that's unique about you is my pleasure to understand, is my gift that you're sharing, is my intelligence and my choice to listen, or to say maybe this is something I'm uncomfortable with and this isn't for me. But when we enter a conversation or enter a communion with somebody, it's with 100% respect of who they are. And I think that would help mental illness not be put in such a place, if we see it as just the truth of who you are, that you haven't quite been given the correct channel to share yourself through, then maybe we can be helpers. And I think that's what Mariel and I are doing in sharing our story, to connect onward with what you were talking about too. We share so we create the chain of compassion that allows people to be and tell the truth about who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's critical. That ability to just be who you are.
Yes.
And be accepted for who you are.
Yes.
And mental illness and it's a problem because we call it mental illness.
That's right.
You know, the minute you say that, it gets creepy. You start to feel like, oh, that doesn't feel so hot. You know, like that feels creepy. We don't like that. And the truth is, I think there's more mental illness out there, or mental instability out there, than like you said, than anybody's willing to kind of really hold on to. And you know, what we're trying to do with the Dead Poets Foundation is give some education.
That's right.
To kids, to people, to parents, so that we can understand that the world that we live in is not the 50s. It's not how we were brought up. It's different. And we have to come at it with new parameters and we got to give a stable groundwork for people to live life. Right. I think life has become incredibly complicated, but life really isn't that complicated if you take it down to the brass bones of it. You and I have come from massively complicated backgrounds with massively complicated people who are creative and genius and sick and angry and you know, it's a lot of stuff, but that's great. We have that in common, and I can see that in your eyes, and we both want to cry all the time.
Right.
But you know, how do we move from that story of pain, and that story of alcoholism and addiction? I mean, Nico, you come from that. But how can we shift from that and say, how can we create a world from here?
That's right.
A compassionate world where people know how to breathe and know how to do things that make sense. Communication, like, what is communication? How do you really do that? And is communication and sharing your story really, and you brought this up before the show, it's about union. It's about coming together. I mean, your show is called Better Together.
Yep.
You know, like, and it is. We're all better together, and we all heal by coming together.
Well, one of the balances that seems to be going, first of all, I never called myself mentally ill. Other people did. I didn't.
Right.
So that right off the bat. Right. But as you're saying, the
and how hurtful is that, you know, to hear that?
Dude, I've been through. Are you kidding? People have called me every single thing in that they possibly could. I don't think anybody has ever defined me in a realistic way, and I think that's because we forget to ask questions. When I wrote "Call Me Crazy," if I had known that people were going to do what I said, I would have called my book "Call Me Sane." Like, are you kidding me? Right. I am the sanest person. I am the most truthful person. My truth is not something that people were used to hearing. Yeah. So crazy became the word in between that defined the space of "I don't get you." And I think that's a lot of what this mental instability or crazy is called. I don't get you, so I'm going to call you something that everybody can agree on is not worth exploring.
And I can walk away
And
from
I can walk away nuts. I have no responsibility because you're nuts. Now I can go pat myself on the back and have a beer. Now, and feel good about myself that I'm not that. At least I'm not that. And I think that's how we move through this foundation that we've established in our society. Whereas if we lift the mental illness and put in a disease, a dis-ease in who others are, we are uncomfortable with knowing what we see. If we stop ignoring what we know and we start abiding what we see, we begin a community of compassion. We don't need to be everybody's best friend, nor do we need, but if we show another that they are 100% capable and experienced enough within themselves to find and seek the help that they need, we become a part of the foundation. Just in seeing another, we can communicate 100% you got it by standing in a grocery line with our masks on. You got you, you got you, you got you, I can see you. The capacity with which we see is the capacity with which we look. I can see you and we can see it in others, what their capacity is. That's the disease with the self that doesn't allow us to look at another because we are ashamed of our own being. If we just start flipping that upside down into an ease of conscious thought, saying to another, you are it, man. You are 100% you, and you got it. Whether or not I ever see you again, I can create a conscious culture of lifting,
culture of acceptance.
Of acceptance.
I mean, and what about this past year has been? It's been a time of non-acceptance. Like all this disruption. It's
more than I can ever remember.
Ever. I mean, in our lifetime, it's like we never thought we'd come to a place where all the striving that we got to a certain point it all crumbled. And it was like, but in some ways, maybe that was good. Maybe all the crumbling needed to happen so we could go, okay, let's get really honest about this.
The universe is seeing us.
Yeah.
We created this.
And we created
And we're
it.
going to create it as long as we are putting our children up against each other to blow each other's heads off.
Yeah.
It's going to, as long as there is that disease of war in the world, that famine of conscious thought is going to continue to create disease, true disease in the world because it doesn't have any place else to go. It's like an abuser. An abuser starts with being, it starts verbally.
Right.
You talk to any cop, talk to any detective. You know what happens next? It becomes violence. Mm-hmm. Every single woman who is in prison, who is there for anything that has happened in their family that has been violent, that they took out on somebody else, started with verbal abuse, then it got worse, and then it got worse, and it got worse until they had to explode, and then they become the criminal because they have to find a way out. There's only one path, and it's the same with anything else that we deposit in our lives. If I deposit my goodness to you, guess what? I'm going to get it back because that's what I'm putting down. But without the system of education that says the simplest of things make us be able to create community. If I look at you with love in my eyes and 100% connect, that's contagious. That contagion is powerful in its connection, and that's the only thing that, in my opinion, is going to create ease out of this disastrous war on, to me, it's hate and abuse that we are looking at right now, and we have landed exactly in a place where.
But don't you feel like it's
let's try something else?
Yeah, but don't you think it's, in my opinion, it's as easy as a different choice? It's like we could all just go, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to make a new choice. I'm going to make a new choice, and I'm just going to listen. Even though you keep trying to talk, and I'm just not listening.
Oh, no. I have nothing to say. No. But for me, like when you said, like people used to call you every name in the book, crazy, and all this stuff, and that happened for me, and then I felt like an obligation to almost live up to that craziness, and it was.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm living up to the obligation. I finally called the press.
Well, you got it.
Well, now
I've got a solution.
Well, now you know why you're doing it.
I have a solution for you. You move to Bend, Oregon. Come and live over where I'm at, and it's where nobody knows what I used to do, what I did, and I don't have to behave that way. I had to get away from those friends that knew me as that crazy drug addict, bipolar, whatever they wanted to, put on me. Because I felt like I had an obligation to live up to it. They'd be like, Nicola, who are you going to punch tonight? That guy or whatever. Yeah,
you're nuts. Is there
exactly? But once I separated myself, I got a different perspective. I stepped out of the hurricane that was my life and was the helicopter hovering over. I was able to see what needed to be done, how I needed help. Get rid of drugs and alcohol. And then move towards being the real person who I was. I remember there was a time, it's probably saying too much, but I used to sell drugs at one point, and there was a guy that would bring me money from stuff that he sold, and I remember him walking by a picture of me as an 8-year-old boy, and he looked at the picture and stopped it out in his tracks, and he looked at me and he said, "Where's that guy?" And it just brought tears to my eyes. And I remember I was a really nice kid. I didn't do drugs. I was a caring. I would sew with my grandmother, knit. She would teach me to knit, and we'd drink tea at 4. And and I started to, but I had to remove myself from the what people had established. Now I can, my strength, I can now show what the transformation is, and hopefully it's infectious and other people pick up on it, and they give them hope, because the running joke when you're on drugs is no one gets out of this, but you do, and I'm gonna make it happen and be the example.
And you founded the Dead Poets Foundation with Mariel Hemingway, and look at what is happening. You are a resource. You are both a resource, and you're leading a movement, and you're helping people from that kid is back.
Yeah,
that kid is back.
Well, and I think we all have to reintroduce ourselves to the child that didn't get the love, or that grew up too fast, had to take care of whatever your story is. Because I actually don't think my story's that great anymore. I've told it so many times,
well,
just a story.
Well,
but at the same time,
so funny.
well, I mean, it's not. No, I was listening to your story. Honestly, it was wow, Jesus. She's got lots of more notches than I do. But my point being is just we can't. Transformation is an ongoing process. It's constant, and it's every day. And it's that decision to stay present. And I think that mental health is about a conscious decision that you want to live in the world today. So if we're Dead Poets Foundation and we're prevention against suicide, so we're saying no. I don't make that choice anymore.
Right.
And we want others to say, I don't make that choice anymore. I'm against that, because if there's anything to be against, it's about something that wants you to believe that you're isolated and alone. And everything,
not to be here.
Exactly. But everything to hold on to is that you're invited to stay, because look at where we are. I mean, today you take us down to the beach where we're looking to have an event, and it was beautiful. What a beautiful day. And about making those simple connections to what's happening now. What is, because the story is never going to change. You can't change history. It doesn't mean you don't tell it. It doesn't mean that you don't have a rich understanding of the world because of the experiences that you've been through. But because of those rich experiences, we get to be here today.
There it is.
We get to be here today, and we get to tell, and we get to, and you're really good at this, we get to make space for others to just be in the discomfort, tell the story, do all the stuff. We see you for who you are, or who you actually aren't. But we will listen until you can become yourself. And just giving space. It's I love you.
I love
and
you
I
too.
don't, and I don't judge you. in this, like I'm here, I'm to listening to one thing my grandfather was big on was listening. And I, you know, like he has one of the great quotes.
Made him such a great writer.
Yeah. Because he really knew how to take it in. But listening from that place of like, like you're absorbing an experience, you know?
Jeremiah's a good listener.
Listening is a part of the key component, I think, to what brings us perspective. And when you were talking, Nikolai, about having to get up and out of the hurricane, I think perspective is the joining our emotional being. Are you okay?
I'm joking. Hi, Blicky.
Get out.
Thank you. No, that was good.
I used to do this with my kids. Get it down.
Thank
there
you.
You go.
It helped.
Better?
Oh, good. That's what I'm here for.
I was just so surprised someone asked me a question. Thank you.
Fixer.
That's right. When we have, if everybody did what I said, we'd have a much better world. Mariel, you're catching up. Like I said. But when we talk about what that lift up out of, perspective is an incredible superpower. To me, I think that the universe's biggest superpower to us is choice. I can say yay or nay. We've got a million choices a day. Some of them are as easy as do I want water or do I want a Red Bull? The others are, which is better for me. Now, sometimes I go with the Red Bull. That's just me. But then the choices get more and more difficult as we go. Do I pay attention to what I say? Do I pay attention to me? Am I going to tell the truth about this? But we both raise kids, teenagers. Our emotions tend to be the thing that guide us through our choices. So our choices are determined often by one of our greatest superpowers as well, which is our emotion, our heart, our thing that we want or don't want, or how we feel about something. But in a world of disease, in a society that has flipped disease as being something that's called the truth, like we can go to war, I'll bring that up again because it's just the most obvious one, has turned into something that we now make sense of and go, yeah, sure, my kids can go sign up too. Now that's the most illogical thing in the world. We've flipped truth upside down, and the lie is actually what's called truth. And we eat it up. We consume it. We don't pay attention. We don't tell ourselves that, wait a second, let me get some perspective up out of this hurricane and go, that's the dumbest idea I ever heard. Right? Let me rethink telling my 18-year-old boy that it's okay for him to go and learn how to use a 16 millimeter, like a machine gun, and blow people up. So that's the most extreme, but we live in choices every day. Am I going to help my child see what it is that they're uncomfortable with? When we merge the superpower of our emotion and join it with intellect, that's what gives us perspective. Then we're not having to be trampled in that hurricane of demise. People don't like me. It is weird. I am supposed to be crazy. I do want to do that other line because I'm going to do that other line because people want me to punch somebody out. I'm on that. Let's get on that ride. And that's an emotion driving and we're forgetting that our intellect is our equal superpower. Because what happens if our emotion takes over, our body, our other greatest superpower, is engaging in that emotion and that emotion is making the decision for our active participation in it. Right. Without the point of view and perspective of intellect, we don't have all three superpowers which we're given here on this planet to engage with, to go, hey, I've got my brain, I've got my heart, and I've got my body. And all three of them are equally important in the decision making that I have. And we don't show that to our children. We get one. Or religion says, let's go on the emotional side. Let's talk about beliefs. Science goes, let's go on the intellectual side. And those two shall never meet. Well, that's the dumbest idea I ever heard.
They should unite.
There's some really bright people who are religious speakers and talk about the conscious concept of what it is to be a God within. And we also have science that says, you know what? It is also a mathematical understanding. It is an equation that if I have my heart, my mind, and my body, I have three superpowers rather than two working. Oh, well, that's really cool. It's just an equation. If I have you plus me, we create something more that's sitting here at this table, which is 1 + 1 = 3, equals 4, equals 5, equals more. You plus me equals more. So why would we ever want anybody to go into the disease of thinking that less is how we are supposed to